Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today we are going to be going over the top 3 best bleed builds in Elden Ring. S tier category, going over the best items, weapons, and talismans to use. Quick shout out to our sponsor AOE.com. If you don't have time to grind for items or runes and you want items real quick, use my code COLD for 3% off. I think we can all agree that bleed builds overall are extremely deadly, and blood loss in particular is a fantastic approach to the game if you want to just destroy everything. In my personal opinion, I think bleed builds in particular are some of the fastest killing builds in Elden Ring. Any build in Elden Ring that focuses on blood loss is a great option because, believe it or not, a majority of the enemies in Elden Ring have no resistance to blood loss whatsoever. These builds will give you an incredibly fast time to kill. They'll be extremely deadly against almost every single enemy in the game, and most importantly, it's going to make you feel unstoppable, making this the top 3 best bleed builds in Elden Ring.
Thy kind are all of a piece. Pillagers, emboldened by the flame of ambition. Have it writ upon thy meager grave.
The first build on the list is the Ravenmount Assassin build. This is easily one of the most popular builds in Elden Ring because its overall effectiveness is insane. You can see in the gameplay our character is wearing the Raptor's black feathers, which is actually worn by the assassins of Ravenmount. This armor is going to be incredible for this build because it strengthens our jump attacks. The dual-wield blood godskin peeler twin blades that you see in the gameplay footage here are amazing weapons, and once you pair these with the Raptor's black feathers armor, the claw talisman, along with the insane amounts of blood loss we can stack on this build, no enemy in the game is going to stand a chance. I also believe the Bloodhound Step Ash of War is seriously one of the best in slot Ashes of War to use on a blood loss build. It's going to make you extremely agile, extremely difficult to hit, and obviously very deadly. Twin Blades in particular are an amazing option in this game because their moveset is incredible and their attacks are extremely fast. As you progress through the game, you will have to decide what you want to do with your attribute points. My goal is to point you in the right direction. If you just started the game recently and you are around level 50, your attributes could look something like this. The most important thing to note here is you want to focus primarily on Vigor, Dexterity, and Arcane. These are going to be the 3 main attributes as you progress through the game. As you move towards level 100, you will continue to prioritize those 3 attributes: Vigor, Dexterity, and Arcane, like I mentioned previously, and this is a trend you are going to keep following as you get to endgame. Since most people like to stop leveling up their characters at level 150, the attributes could look something like this. For Vigor, I highly recommend at least 50 HP on your build. You could also increase it to level 60, but if you believe you have what it takes to dodge lots of attacks, you don't really have to worry about it too much. Mind at 15, we have Endurance at 25, Strength 15, Dexterity at 50, lots of raw melee damage on this build, and then we have Arcane at the soft cap of 60. Just remember, Arcane is going to determine how quickly you can stack blood loss buildup, and this is going to be extremely important for a build like this. Like I mentioned before, I'm using the Blood Godskin Peeler plus 25 fully maxed out twin blades to be exact. You can actually use any twin blades you want on this build. I highly recommend these though because their dexterity scaling is incredible. There are plenty of twin blades to choose from in Elden Ring. You can also go with the regular twin blade that scales evenly with both strength and dexterity. The Godskin Peeler twin blade is dropped from an enemy in Atlas Plateau located here at the Windmill Village. The boss will be all the way at the top. Once you defeat him, he will drop the Godskin Peeler twin blade. Since our Arcane is so high on this build, I currently have 80 Arcane at level 250, which is where I'm currently at. You can see below that both of our twin blades are giving us 141 blood loss buildup each. This is going to allow for extremely fast blood loss, which means you can kill your target even faster. To achieve this much blood loss and to kill your targets very fast, When you are choosing your Ash of War, remember we are using Bloodhound Step on this build. Be sure to go with the Blood Affinity, which is going to drastically increase your overall attack power. You can see here 249 plus 377 physical attack power, along with that 141 blood loss buildup. For the apparel, we have the Skeletal Mask, Raptor's Black Feathers chest piece that we discussed earlier, the Bandit hand wraps, and the Kaden trousers. Now keep in mind, if you do want some more damage on your build, I would highly recommend going with the White Mask. This is going to slightly raise attack power when there is blood loss in the vicinity. And the Raptor's Black Feathers, probably the most important piece on this build. This armor piece is going to strengthen our jump attacks, which is going to make our twin blades even stronger. Starting with the first talisman on the build, the Lord of Blood's Exultation. Blood loss in vicinity increases attack power. This is going to be one of the best in slot talismans for a bleed build. The next talisman here, the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, greatly raises attack power with successive attacks. This works incredibly well with the twin blades. We also have the Green Turtle Talisman, which is going to raise our stamina recovery speed. And last but not least here, probably the most important talisman to make this build as effective as it is, the Claw Talisman, which is going to enhance our jump attacks. And yes, this is going to stack with the Raptor's Black Feathers. For my Wondrous Physic mix, I'm using the Thorny Crack tier and the Greenburst Crystal tier. I think these both work incredibly well on this build because the Thorny Crack tier is going to boost successive attack power, and the Greenburst is going to give us even more stamina recovery speed. The next bleed build on our list is the Okina Samurai build. This build definitely deserves a spot on this list because we are utilizing one of the strongest weapons in Elden Ring, the Rivers of Blood Katana. This weapon's Ash of War, called Corpse Piler, is the main reason this is one of the most popular weapons in the game. Such an easy attack to execute, but so effective and so much damage at the same time. This build separates itself from the rest because this one in particular focuses primarily on weapon skill, and we are also utilizing incantations that are going to boost our overall physical and fire affinity attack power, along with increasing our defense simultaneously. Your physical attack power on this build is going to be insane. It's going to allow for an incredibly fast time to kill, the ability to stack blood loss within seconds, and it is hands down one of the strongest builds in Elden Ring. As you play through the game and level up your character, you want to focus primarily on 3 attributes: Vigor, Dexterity, and Arcane. Vigor is your overall survivability, Dexterity is going to increase your overall melee damage, and Arcane is going to assist with blood loss, and as you get later into the game, adding more damage to your arcane scaling weapons. As you get towards level 100, I highly advise speccing into other attributes on the build. For example, we increased our mind here because it takes focus points to use the Corpse Piler Ash of War on the Rivers of Blood Katana. This means the more mind you have, the more you can use this attack. I also want to increase my endurance just because it is a melee focused build and you want to make sure you have enough stamina. Increased our dexterity to 30, and I highly advise increasing your faith over time because once you reach 25 faith, you can use the Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength incantations that increase your physical attack power and defense at the same time. And lastly, we have Arcane at 30. At level 150, which is where most people stop leveling up their characters, your attributes could look something like this. For Vigor, we have 50. You can see here the same principles applied. We increased our Vigor, Dexterity, and Arcane. These are the 3 highest attributes on the build at all times. Just don't forget, I highly recommend increasing your faith to at least 25 so you can utilize those incredible incantations. The first weapon we are using, one of the best weapons in Elden Ring, the Rivers of Blood Katana. You can see here mine is fully maxed out, plus 10. I am currently level 250. If you look to the right here, these are my current stats. As you get to endgame, your builds will get increasingly better and you will start to do more damage and have more survivability. Another great thing about the Rivers of Blood is the fact that it adds fire damage to your weapon. It also has incredible attribute scaling, heavily favors dexterity over anything, which means the higher your dexterity on the build, the more damage you're going to do with the Rivers of Blood katana. We also can't forget the additional 78 blood loss buildup. If you want to get your hands on one of the best weapons in the game, you're going to have to wait until you get to this endgame area, the Mountaintops of the Giants. There is going to be a church here called the Church of Repose, where you are going to fight a boss. That boss will drop the Rivers of Blood katana. For my secondary, I am using a fully maxed out Uji katana, an incredible weapon in Elden Ring. You can see here I have the Seppuku Ash of War with the Occult Affinity. Although the Blood Affinity scales primarily with dexterity and gives us more blood loss buildup, the Occult Affinity actually will give us more physical attack power utilizing our Arcane. We do have some incantations on this build, so I'm using the Dragon Communion Seal fully maxed out, as you can see here. Incredible Arcane scaling S tier, and we get that additional boost to our Dragon Communion incantations. The first incantation we are using is the Swarm of Flies. This incantation works incredible on this build because these blood flies are going to stack blood loss buildup on your target, making it even easier for you to take them out. We also have the Rotten Dragon's Breath. This is incredible if you want to stack Scarlet Rot on your targets. The same thing goes with Agiel's Flame, which is going to do fire damage to your targets. And keep in mind, all of these incantations are boosted by our Dragon Seal. We also have the Dragon Ice incantation to stack frost buildup. This one is one of my personal favorites. And like I mentioned earlier, we have Golden Vow, which is going to increase our offense and defense by 15%. Stacking that with the Flame Grant Me Strength incantation, which boosts our physical and fire affinity attack power by 20%. For the apparel, I am using the Okina mask that you actually get from the same enemy that drops the Rivers of Blood katana. You can use the white mask if you want more damage on your bleed build, but it's not necessary. I also have the Land of Reed's armor, the White Reed gauntlets, and the Land of Reed's greaves. I think my character looks pretty cool. Definitely looks like a samurai, and he looks extremely intimidating. I seriously believe these are the best talismans to use on a build like this, starting with the Lord of Blood's Exultation. Blood loss in vicinity is going to increase our attack power, and obviously that works especially well with the amount of blood loss buildup we have. The next talisman, the Shard of Alexander, one of the best talismans in Elden Ring. I highly recommend getting your hands on this one. This is going to greatly boost the attack power of skills. Our main attack on this build, the Corpse Piler from the Rivers of Blood, is going to do more damage. We also have the Rotten Wings Sword Insignia, which greatly raises attack power with successive attacks. And last but not least, one of my favorite talismans in the game, the Green Turtle Talisman, which raises stamina recovery speed. For my Wondrous Physic mix, I am using the Flame Shrouding Crack tier and the Cerulean Hidden tier. The Flame Shrouding Crack tier is incredible because it's going to boost our fire attacks, and if you remember, our Rivers of Blood katana does fire damage. Also, the addition of the Cerulean Hidden tier, eliminating all FP consumption. It's an amazing combination. The next build on the list is the Lord of Blood build. This build definitely deserves a spot on this list because we are using one of the best arcane scaling weapons in the game, MOHGWYNS Sacred Spear. If you haven't used this weapon on your bleed build, you are seriously missing out. The Blood Boon Ritual Ash of War that's exclusive to this weapon will annihilate your enemies before they can even touch you. It has a huge radius, very fast blood loss, and lots of damage. In addition to this incredible strength and arcane scaling weapon, we have the dual-wield scavenger swords with the Occult Affinity, which means extremely high physical attack power to destroy anything that gets in our way. This build works incredibly well against bosses because out of the 3 builds that we go over today, this one actually has the quickest blood loss buildup. Around level 50, you can see that the 3 main attributes on this build are Vigor, Strength, and Arcane. This is very important to remember as you progress through the game. As you move closer to level 100, you will continue to prioritize those 3 attributes, but just remember to make some room for mind, because the more mind you have, the more focus points you have, And with those focus points, you can use MOHGWYNS Sacred Spear, the Blood Boon Ritual ability, which is going to be your main attack on this build. At level 150, your attributes could look something like this. We have our HP at 50. I think 50 is a good spot to be at. I wouldn't go any lower than that. Mind at 20. We increased our endurance a bit as well. We have strength at 40 and arcane at 60. You can see here I am actually level 250. This is where I decided to stop leveling up my characters. You can see here the attribute points follow the same principles. I prioritized vigor, strength, and arcane. I have both strength and arcane at 80, which means lots of physical attack power and very fast blood loss. Our primary weapon, MOHGWYNS Sacred Spear, fully maxed out plus 10, the weapon you have been seeing in the gameplay footage. This is actually dropped from one of the main bosses in the game, Mohg, the Lord of Blood. You can see here 235 plus 324 physical attack power, and similar to the Rivers of Blood katana, this weapon also does fire damage. You can also see here the attribute scaling heavily favors strength and arcane, making it a perfect weapon for this build, and we get that additional 92 blood loss buildup. For our dual wield scavenger swords, our main melee weapons on this build, you can see here we have the occult affinity on both of the scavenger swords, and the main reason we did this is because we wanted to stack as much physical attack power as possible, and the best way to do that, especially with the build that has high arcane scaling, is to use the occult affinity. 225 plus 346 physical attack power for each of our scavenger swords. We have the Seppuku Ash of War for both of our weapons here, and like I mentioned, when you go with the occult affinity, it is going to give you more physical attack power, as you can see here. We also have the Dragon Communion Seal fully maxed out plus 10. This seal is incredible for an arcane build because we have S tier scaling and we get that additional boost to the Dragon's Communion incantations. The first incantation we are using, which works great for this build because MOHGWYNS Sacred Spear actually does physical and fire attack damage, so Flame Grant Me Strength is going to increase our physical and fire affinity attack power. Stack that with the Golden Vow incantation, which gives us an additional 15% attack power and defense. We also have the Swarm of Flies incantation that you can pretty much spam, and it works great to stack blood loss on your target. We also have the Rotten Dragon's Breath. This is one of my personal favorite, along with Agiel's Flame that does fire damage. And last but not least, one of the best Dragon's Communion incantations, Dragon Ice, that causes frost buildup. For the apparel, I'm using the Sanguine Noble Hood, the Lord of Blood's robe, the Battle Mage hand wraps, and the Preceptor's trousers. For the talismans, we are using the Lord of Blood's Exultation that gives us increased attack power with blood loss in the vicinity. I also recommend using the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman because you are going to leave yourself exposed when you use the Blood Boon Ritual Ash of War on MOHGWYNS Sacred Spear. This talisman is going to enormously boost physical damage negation. We also have the Fire Scorpion Charm, which is going to raise our fire attacks. And last but not least, the Shard of Alexander, which is going to greatly boost the attack power of skills. For our Wondrous Physic mix, we are using the Flame Shrouding Crack tier, which temporarily boosts fire attacks, and the Cerulean Hidden tier that eliminates all FP consumption. Well, there you have it, guys. Those are the top 3 bleed builds in Elden Ring. Thank you all so much for the support on the channel. We are growing very fast, and words cannot describe how thankful I am. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up. I would appreciate it a lot. Also, if you want to see more videos just like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.